guys, Eric here, and I'm going to give a spoiler-free review of The Suicide Squad, which is the kind of sort of sequel to 2016's The Free Suicide Squad. I guess I would call this what we talked about on SJU recently as a soft reboot. My comparison there was when they did G.I. Joe Retaliation after G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra, and they took some of the elements and some of the actors from that last movie, but they brought in a bunch of new ones, and they didn't want you to have seen the other one. If you didn't, it was fine. And we're, kind of starting over within the series. That's the thing here. But I will say up front, I liked The Suicide Squad a whole lot better than any movie with G.I. Joe in the title. So don't think that's a judgment on the quality as much as what they were trying for here. They jump right in with that scenario again here about who the Suicide Squad are, aka Task Force X, and the idea that these are imprisoned supervillains who go on these very dangerous missions in exchange for getting time off on their sentences. But if they try to flee, there's an explosive in the back of their head and it'll be detonated and they'll die. So a large group of Task Force X members right at the top of this movie are sent on a mission to the island of Corto Maltese to stop a dictatorship, this sort of dangerous regime in power. But really, it's about destroying a laboratory where some nefarious things are happening. And here's where I'll say something that I don't think it's not a spoiler because it's in all the trailers. James Gunn even said it's not. How can it be a spoiler? It's there, which is eventually Starro is in this movie, who is a big alien starfish. But that's just one of the many goofy things in this movie. The main thing I'll say about the Suicide Squad is it's not really about the plot. It is about the characters, and it is about the dynamic, and it's about the vibe of the movie. And that's where I think James Gunn is the not so secret weapon here, and why it was such a smart idea to hire James Gunn. If you look at his career, he has really proven to have this knack for taking a group of offbeat, very different characters and putting them in a group dynamic, clearly most famously with Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think that goes back even to something, say, like Dawn of the Dead, the version that he wrote. That is a big strength of his, and they use it very wisely here. It really pops out. He makes it all mesh together, this group of characters. I think he was very smart to bring back characters that he did from the first film that really did resonate and worked. Not a lot of characters did in that film, but Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn certainly did. So did Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang. They're both back. And then he took a couple of, really good actors who weren't well served by that film. Viola Davis as Amanda Waller and Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flag. He brings them back, but this time out, they, just get, I think, much sort of juicier scenes and moments that really stand out in a way they didn't last time. I mean, it's not like you need me to tell you Viola Davis is a great actor, but this movie gives her like at least one or two scenes that are like, oh yeah, she is a powerhouse. And then surrounding them is this group of very fun and random new characters that are purposely pulled from sort of the most obscure corners of DC. You've got Idris Elba's Bloodsport, Michael Rooker's Savant, John Cena's Peacemaker, Nathan Fillion as TDK, Pete Davidson as Blackguard. That's not all of them. There's a lot of characters in this movie. The 2016 movie was rated PG-13. This one is rated R, and wow, can you feel how sort of gleeful James Gunn is about being able to make an R-rated movie here? This is a guy who used to make R-rated horror movies like Slither, and as much as I think he's completely shined with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and those don't need to be R, and he's great with PG-13, his roots are in this sort of stuff. His roots are in Trauma, where he made, purposely goofy exploitation movies. And I think what's really cool about the Suicide Squad is it gets to take the Trauma James Gunn and the mainstream comic book movie James Gunn from Guardian and blend it all together. He gets to do it all here, and I think it really works because of the nature of this movie, this story, these characters. This movie goes for it in terms of how graphic it gets, how shocking it gets. People die in very messy ways here, very darkly comedic, and really, I absolutely adored it. Very much in my wheelhouse. I guess, it will vary for you and for people who go see this, how sensitive they are about gore and how much they can think gore is funny. But if you can, this is for you. But people are blown up in chunky ways. I'll just say that here. There's no one dies very cleanly. Gunn's superpower, though, I think, is that how he can take such over-the-top, crazy moments and scenarios and characters and then suddenly turn it on its head, and suddenly things are very dramatic and even outright emotional, and he makes it work and feel genuine when it could completely collapse at that point. He really cares about these characters. I think you feel that. You feel that with the Guardians films. You feel that here. He cares about them, and it really helps you care about them. Yes, some of them are cannon fodder, but a lot of them have plenty of depth as things go on, and you really do get attached to them. I think Idris Elba kind of brings this nice world weariness, his blood sport. John Cena is really perfect as the deranged peacemaker, getting to show his comedic side that he's had in other films while playing this very dangerous guy, but in a comedic way. And Margot Robbie, I think, really just continues to sort of shine as Harley Quinn. She's made this character her own in a way that I think is kind of up there now with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine and Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man and Christopher Reeve as Superman. That those times when an actor and a comic book character really go hand in hand, and it's hard, even though other good actors can and probably will play them, at the moment you can't think of anyone else playing them. And after this is her third time playing this character, and it just, she completely owns it. She gets a fantastic fight scene this time out, and she gets a one hell of a monologue that Gunn gives her. But I think in the midst of that, I think it's safe to say, and I've heard other people use this term for these characters, the heart of the movie does belong to Daniela Melcher has Ratcatcher 2, that is the daughter of Ratcatcher 1, and David Dastmalchian as Polka Dot Man, who has polka dot-based powers, as one does. They are these sort of extremely heartfelt and genuine weirdos. This is where you can really feel like how much James Gunn loves these characters. She controls rats, and she has this really sweet dynamic with Bloodsport, kind of this father-daughter dynamic. As I mentioned, Polka Dot Man has the power of polka dots behind him. But as the movie goes on, they take this really ridiculous character, and I think Gunn kind of leans into the ridiculous nature of him, but he also gives him depth at the same time, and he has some great moments. The movie visually really, I think, stands out. There's some very cool moments that are sort of screenshot ready, and I love how Gunn takes you inside the mind of a couple of these characters quite literally, visually. Polka Dot Man, Harley Quinn, there's a couple times where we kind of see the world the way they see the world, and it's a little skewed because they are skewed characters, and I think that's really fun. The pace is really good, and I think the innate nature of it being the Suicide Squad, the guarantee that not all these characters are going to make it to the end, helps because it adds this inherent tension. The further we get into the movie and the more we care about these characters, the more we have to deal with the fact that probably some of them are going to die too. This movie has so much going on. I haven't even mentioned that Sylvester Stallone voices King Shark, and he is a super fun part of the film as well. It's no secret that the DCEU has been all over the place with some huge highs and some huge lows, and a really notable lack of cohesion, I'd say, from the start. Personally, I felt the 2016 Suicide Squad movie was the biggest miss of the bunch. Whatever they were setting out to make, it didn't work. The final film felt like sort of a bunch of nonsense, mostly filled with a lot of sort of posturing. There weren't really almost any characters to invest in, a couple of exceptions. And I didn't think, I think most of the time you were laughing sort of at that movie in a way not intended. Everyone remembers the katana line because it's such a bad line, not because it's like, this is a funny, clever line. The Suicide Squad, on the other hand, is James Gunn sort of perfectly in the wheelhouse that he is just made for. It is very funny, very heartfelt. He knows how to bring these really wild comic book characters to life in a way that I think is really special, because I'm a lifelong comic book fan. But you have to acknowledge that a lot of these characters are really stupid sometimes, but they're also great. And that's what this movie, I think, does. It's like, yes, these are such silly, stupid characters. These are also awesome, wonderful characters that you can connect to. It's all in here. This movie had me really emotional from some big moments of truth that happen. And there's also a giant alien starfish. And there's also a shark who can walk around on land and eat people and says silly things. It's got it all. Does every single joke land? I'd say no. There's some hits and misses on the joke front, but I think most of them certainly do. Are there characters I felt could have gone on a little longer and just done more before they died? I mean, that is purposeful, because I think, of course, he wants you to be like, oh, that might be a cool character, and then take them out. There's still a couple times I thought I would have liked 20 more minutes with that guy, that would have been nice. But overall, I think the Suicide Squad is going big in sort of all the right ways. It's definitely a standout movie for the DCEU so far, and I am giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. So that is my thoughts on the Suicide Squad. We're going to have a spoiler chat and really sort of dig into it after it opens. So look for that, and please keep checking out us here at Fandom. Thanks, guys.